All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy Fiore. I am the director of the Nonprofit Help Desk and delighted to welcome you all here for the first time, if that is what you are, or welcome back to our workshop series. I am thrilled to have Leanna Hess with us today, talking about a topic that is actually one of our most requested topics. Before we allow her to get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about the Nonprofit Help Desk so that you have a sense of all the other things that we offer. Leanna, would you mind advancing my slides for me for a moment? So we are an organization that is a program of the JCC of Greater Coney Island. We offer free live workshops, which you know because you are here. And also, you may not be aware that we have an archive of all of our past workshops. So if there's a topic that you can't be patient for, we're getting to it later this year, but you really need the answers right away, or you have something that you're looking for an answer to, all of them are available on our website at nphd.org. We also have an active LinkedIn community that we want all of you to join, so please look for the Nonprofit Help Desk on LinkedIn as well. If you wouldn't mind jumping to the next slide, just to give you an idea of the kinds of videos in our archive that you can see all of the different things that we are covering on a regular basis. It is a combination of what we call capacity building workshops that talk about everything like today's topic on budgeting to board development to leadership and management to fundraising. And we also have a slew of workshops about New York City specific funding opportunities, how to manage the application, access the application once you get the funding, how do you deal with it? It sometimes gives you the opportunity to hear some of your council members say a quick hello, which is always a great opportunity as well. So definitely check all of that out at nphd.org. We have currently posted everything that is now through the end of December, and we're going to be announcing the rest of our of this season's workshops coming soon. So please do check those out. Last but not least, Leanna, if you wouldn't mind advancing one more time for me, we are actually a help desk. Think of us as your personal nonprofit geek squad. We want to know what your specific questions are. At nphd.org, you can fill out a form, tells us very little, very quick information about your organization, and then we want your specific questions. Now, you come to us and you say, I need to know how to fundraise. We're going to send you to some videos to at least have a common framework of knowledge, and then we can open ourselves up, put you in touch with experts on the topic that you are looking for. So please do check that out. Before you ask in the chat, first of all, questions and answers. We're going to keep the chat going the whole time. If you have a question that comes up during our session, please don't hesitate to put it in there. If I can answer it for you as we're going along, I will go ahead and do that. I'm going to answer the question that I get every single time, which is, will these slides be available to me afterwards? The answer is a resounding yes. That's where that archive is. So we'll send you an email about that within a week or so, but you can always find the archive to all of our sessions, which is why it's being recorded right now. Without any further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Leanna Hess, an expert in this subject. I've been looking forward to having her both present for all of you and actually be a member of our expert team. So you can actually even follow up and get one-on-one help if you need with her. I'm going to stop talking. Leanna, it's on you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Hello, everyone. And thank you, Amy, for that introduction. I'm really excited to get into this topic today, building confidence with budgets. This is my bread and butter. I'm so excited to meet with you all. If you have, like Amy said, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get started. The agenda, why budgets matter, the anatomy of nonprofit budgets, budget types. Many people don't know that there are many different types. Organizing budgets with IRS in mind. We'll have
Leanna,
an
we're having just a little trouble hearing you. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we might have had the microphone shift one more time. Apologies, everyone. We're just going to get that fixed. And now it looks like you're on mute, just so you know.
How about now? Is this working?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Fantastic. We'll have an interactive activity and at the end, wrap up and resources. So let's start with a poll. So when you hear the word budget, what comes to mind? So click on clarity, stress, boring, control, confusion. There are no wrong answers. So please let me know what you were thinking.
And folks, while you're doing that, Leanna, that microphone keeps on switching out on you. So we might just have you raise your voice, or if you don't mind just checking that one more time.
I'm not sure why it's switching out. Okay, let's have a couple more people answer the poll and then we'll show the results.
All right, we'll end that poll. There we go.
Okay, so clarity and control, these were the main ones. Okay, I would have voted control, and that's just my perspective, but each one of us has a different point of view. Okay. So when a lot of people see a budget, they think of an accounting document or a spreadsheet that has a balance, but in reality, budgets tell a story of what your organization values and how you bring your mission to life. So take a second to think about your mission statement. If your organization's mission is to empower youth through art, education, for example, your budget should reflect what you expect to see: investments in art supplies, teaching staff, and community workshops. Your budget should serve as a mirror of your priorities. When you, your board, your staff, or even funders look at the numbers, they should see your values in action. Financial independence comes from looking at your budget and saying, yes, this reflects who we are and what we stand for. Now I want you to think about this. If your organization's budget could speak, what story would it tell right now? Would it say we are focused and strategic? Or would it say we're reacting and just trying to get by? So go ahead, share in the chat. What story do you want your budget to share? Now let's talk about what a budget actually does for your organization. It's not just a requirement or a formality. It's one of the most powerful tools you can have as a leader. First, your budget is a planning tool. It helps you map out your goals and translate them into resources. Ask yourself, what programs do we want to run this year? What do we need in terms of people, time, money to make them happen? This turns your mission into a plan of action. Second, your budget is a decision-making tool. Once you have it in place, your budget guides you where to invest or scale back. If your program is growing, your numbers will show that you may need to shift some resources around. If funding tightens, your budget can help you make informed decisions instead of reactive ones.
Leanna,
Thirdly,
I'm so sorry. We're still having some sound issues. I don't know if there's anything we might be able to do.
why don't I try connecting with my phone?
Thanks, everyone, for your patience. I'll answer the question. As we said at the very top, we will always share our decks and always share videos of all of our sessions. You will receive a link to that via email about a week afterwards, and it all lives in the archive on the NPHD website. Thank you, Ray. You are correct. There are closed captions available, and I have Leanna coming back in on audio, so we should be able to hear her better when she is in.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, though I think you want to put yourself on mute, otherwise just because we're going to get an echo.
Okay, how's this?
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks everyone for
Perfect.
your patience.
Thank you everyone for your patience. So going into the third point, your budget is an accountability tool. It is how you communicate your financial priorities with your board, funders, and staff. It is a clear, transparent budget that builds confidence. People can see resources and how they're being managed responsibly and aligned with a mission. So in short, your budget helps you plan, decide, and communicate. And when you use it in all three ways, instead of tracking money, you're leading with purpose and clarity. A lot of organizations say that their mission is at the heart of what they do, but when you look at their budget, it always doesn't match. Maybe 80% of the money that goes to admin, or there's very little investment in programs that define their impact. So I want you to think about this. If your mission is what you do, your budget should show how you do it. Let's take an example. If your mission is to expand community food access, then your budget should clearly show how spending that supports that things like local food sourcing, transportation to and from distribution sites, and outreach in families of need. If you don't see those investments reflected, it's worth asking, are we funding our mission or maintaining operations? The goal is to align your attentions with your allocations. That alignment builds credibility with funders and confidence within your team because everyone can see how dollars connect directly to impact. So I want you to take a second and think, what mission statements values are showing in our budget? So let's get into the anatomy of a nonprofit budget. When we talk about nonprofit budgets, we're really looking at three main parts: revenue, expenses, and net operating income. Let's start with revenue. For most community-based nonprofits, this includes grants, individual donations, membership fees, and sometimes program income, such as fees from workshops, ticketed events, or even merchandise. It is important to diversify these sources whenever possible. Relying too heavily on one grant or one funder can make your organization vulnerable if that source disappears. Next, we have expenses. This is where your mission comes to life through salaries and benefits for your staff, program costs, administrative costs, and fundraising efforts. When reviewing your expenses, ask yourself what these numbers say about your priorities. For example, if your staff time and dollars are spent on program delivery, that is usually a healthy sign that your spending aligns with impact. Finally, let's look at net operating income. This is the difference between your total revenue and your total expenses. Surplus means you brought more in than what is spent, which is usually a positive sign and can help you build reserves or invest in new opportunities. A deficit means expenses are higher than revenue. This always doesn't indicate failure. Sometimes it's strategic. For example, when an organization invests in a new program or covers bridge funding while waiting on a grant. It does signal to leaders that they should pay attention, ask questions, and plan for sustainability. The takeaway is that each line in your budget tells a story, and it shows how money comes in, how it is used, and what is left to the strength of your organization's future. Now here we have an example budget layout. So we have the income and broken down, and then the expenses, and then the surplus all into the bottom. Each budget will look different, but this is just an example that we have here. Now that we've seen the main parts of a budget, let's look at some key accounting concepts that help every nonprofit leader. Understanding these concepts help you read your budget with confidence and communicate clearly with your board and funders. Restricted versus unrestricted funds. Restricted funds are the dollars that must be used for a specific purpose. For example, if you want to receive a grant to run a youth tutoring program, that money cannot be used for office renovations or general operations. Unrestricted funds are more flexible and what generally people really want to go for. General donations that your organizations can use whenever they're most needed are a pretty good example. They allow you to cover operational costs or respond to urgent needs. Direct versus indirect costs. Direct costs are expenses that are traced to specific programming. For example, paying the salary of a teacher who leads a summer literacy program is a direct cost. Indirect costs are associated across the organization. This includes things like rent, utilities, insurance, admin. Oh, sorry, something just popped up. This includes things that just keep the lights on, essentially. These costs support your programs, but are not tied to a single initiative. Cost versus accrual accounting. People get terrified with this. Cash accounting records income and expenses as the money moves. So if someone, for example, a donor gives $5,000 today, you record it immediately. Accrual accounting records income and expenses when they are earned or incurred, even if the money has not exchanged hands yet. An example is you completed a service for a grant in December, but the payment actually comes in January. You will record it in December under accrual accounting. Understanding these distinctions, you can read your budget more clearly, make better financial decisions, and explain your numbers confidently to your board, staff, and funders. So let's get into the types of budgets. There are, today we're just going to go over the four of the common budgets. Nonprofits always talk about the budget, as if there's only one. And in practice, many organizations juggle several different kinds. Understanding these four types helps you match your financial tools to your needs. The operational budget is your organization's main financial plan for the year. This is what your board approves, showing expected income, expenses across all different types of activities. The program budget drills down a bit deeper. Think of it as a focused version for your operating budget and creating for specific grants, projects, or initiatives. Funders may want to see this level of detail. It really depends on your on each funder. Capital budget looks at big purchases or long-term investments. Think of replacement of vehicles, buying equipment, or renovating a space. It's helpful for planning multi-year funding or for large one-time needs. And finally, the cash flow budget is about timing. Even if your operation budget is balanced, you still might run short for a couple of months if revenue arrives late. Tracking cash flow allows you to plan for those dips and keep your programs running smoothly. Together, these four types of budgets give you a full picture: the annual plan, the program details, the long-term vision, and the day-to-day reality. Having more than one type of budget isn't about creating extra work. It's about building visibility and confidence. A cash flow budget helps you see when the money's actually arriving versus when the bills are due. That foresight can help prevent panic that often comes when a grant payment is delayed or donations are slow during the summer. From a leadership perspective, having multiple budgets helps you and your board management team make better decisions. You can spot trends, see where you are over or underspending, and adjust before programs grow. In short, multiple budgets don't complicate the finances, they clarify them. It may be frustrating to do the additional work, but it allows you to have a better picture. They turn financial management from guesswork into actual planning. Organizing budgets with IRS 990 in mind. When we talk about budgeting in nonprofits, one important reality is that every 501c3 organization files an IRS Form 990 each year. It is the reality for all of us. This is a public document, and many funders look at it carefully before deciding whether or not to give a grant. The key point here is that the work that you do now on your annual budget directly impacts on how smooth and accurate your 990 form filing will be. A well-structured budget means that when it comes time to report, you actually have clear categories, tracked expenses, and organized documentation. This makes your numbers easier to defend and your organization more credible. Think of your budget as a practice for your 990 form. If your budget aligns with IRS categories and functional expenses, completing the form is much simpler. Funders and the public see a story of efficiency and mission alignment. A quick example, if your budget already separates program costs, administrative costs, and fundraising costs, you can plug in those numbers directly into the 990 form without scrambling or making estimates. This reduces stress, avoids errors, and builds trust. And if you budget like you're filing tomorrow, it really helps you keep organized and compliant and funder ready. When you think about how a nonprofit spends its money, it all fits into three main buckets. The first one we have is program services. This covers the work that directly fulfills your mission, the things you exist to do. So that might be running workshops, delivering services in the community, or buying materials that go straight into your programs. These are activities that funders really care about and because they show that you're making an impact. Then there's management in general. This is all the behind the scenes work that keeps your organization functioning. Paying the bills, handling HR, managing compliance, leadership oversight. These are often called overhead costs, but they're essential to keeping the mission moving forward. Lastly, fundraising. That's everything you do to bring money in the door, whether it's writing grants, planning donor activities, or creating marketing materials. These expenses support your ability to sustain your work long term. Understanding these three categories help you tell a clear financial story, one that shows how every dollar supports your mission in different ways. Let's take a look at a quick example. This sample budget breaks down expenses into program services, management in general, and fundraising. So you can see how they work in practice. Notice how each cost is assigned based on its purpose, showing a clear picture of where the organization's resources are going. This level of detail is more internal. It is designed to help you manage your team, track expenses accordingly, and it's usually not something that appears in external reports. And here is an example of the tax form 990, where you would see the statement of revenue and how that is split up, and also the functional expenses of how they are also separated. Setting up your accounting systems the right way makes everything else easier, from reporting to board discussions to grant proposals. Using class tracking in QuickBooks, if that's the system you use, or just setting up a separate Excel tab. Having that system, whatever it is, if you're consistent with it, it really helps you see where your resource goes, what's the program, what's management, what's fundraising, and it helps you tell the organization's financial story more confidently. When you build your chart of accounts, try to align it with the 990 form categories, it'll save you time during the annual reports and help your books be consistent with how the IRS and funders view your spending. It's also essential to document your cost allocation methods. For instance, if a staff member splits their time between programming and funding work, write it down how you would actually divide that salary based on timesheets or percentages estimates. The key is consistency over complexity. The simpler you make it, the better. A simple system works beautifully when it's used the same way every month. Start small, refine over time, and make sure anyone stepping into your role could easily understand your setup. Resistance in nonprofits doesn't happen by accident. It's built over time through planning and discipline. The first piece is reserves. Having even a few months of operating reserves can be the difference between stability and crisis. Many nonprofits aim for 3 to 6 months. Even 1 month is a strong start. Think of reserves as your organization's safety net and not money just sitting idle, but a tool to continue on your purpose. Next, make sure every grant proposal includes a realistic indirect cost rate. It's common for non-for-profits to under budget overhead, but your lights, rent, administrative time, they're essential to delivering the programs. Be honest about those costs helps build a stronger and more sustainable organization. Diversifying funds is another key. When you rely too heavily on one source, say one grant or an annual gala, you're vulnerable if that source changes. As many of you know, things are consistently changing. Mixing donors, foundations, government funds, and earned income provides balance and flexibility. The goal isn't to become risk-proof, but to become adaptable, ready to handle changes without losing focus on your mission. Okay, so let's take a few minutes to play Budget Detective. What catches your attention when you're looking at this chart? What story do you think the numbers are telling? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the chat. There are no wrong answers here. The goal is to practice reading between the lines of a budget the same way you would as a board member or a manager reviewing your own organization's financials. So let me know what you think. Okay, so I see someone said that they are in a good place. Salaries, high percentage of program income. Someone is wondering if there are more efficient ways to fundraise. Yeah, these are really good ones. Are not working at deficit, but would want a more effective way costs outlays. Perfect. These are all great things that you all have noticed. The first thing I noticed when looking at this is the balance between the income and expenses. There is a surplus, small cushion, but they're not in the red. They're close to breaking even, which is common for community-based nonprofits. The goal of this exercise is not to judge the numbers. It's very easy to look at, and this is a very simplified budget, but it is to read a budget as if it's a story. Every line tells something about priorities, risks, and opportunities. Wrapping up, I've been speaking a little more quickly than I usually do. As we close, I want to leave you with a few reminders. A clear budget doesn't just keep your numbers straight. It builds confidence in your organization. It shows your team, your board, and your funders that you know exactly how your mission connects to your money. Remember that your budget is your story in numbers. It's not stagnant. It grows, it shifts, it improves in each cycle as you learn. So don't be afraid to revisit it, refine it, and make it a living tool that supports your mission every day. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you feel a little more confident and equipped to build budgets and truly tell your story. If you'd like to learn more, here are some resources. Of course, the Nonprofit Help Desk, how Amy mentioned earlier, has so many resources, and I really enjoyed Budgeting and Financial Management for Nonprofits Organizations. Great read. And if you are the type of person you'd rather watch a video, Amber, Melanie Smith, or Boss on a Budget. They really help break down some of the concepts. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions. If anyone has questions, comments, concerns.
So thank you, Leanna. This was incredibly helpful. There have been a couple questions in the comments asking specifically about a template for your budget. Is there a template that you recommend? Is there just one template that folks should be using? Where should folks begin if they're sort of feeling like, I don't know where to start putting, numbers to grids on this?
Yes, every organization is different. I would say if you have no idea where to start, here where it has where to learn more, the last link under websites, they do have budget templates. I would advise you to start there, but please adapt it to your own organization. Each organization has its own way of functioning, so I would start there and build all the different components of your own organization.
And would you, because we aren't able to open these links, they will be able to do it once they have access to the slides. Are you able to share in the chat what link that is so that folks can take a look?
Yes, of course. Yes, give me one moment. Oop.
Then I have some more questions for you.
Yes. Let's see. I copy link. I should have just done that. Perfect. So
There.
that's where you could do nonprofit budgeting.
Excellent. The next question that I see here is, what is a good way to account for staff that works in multiple programs when you're budgeting for each program?
Yeah. So if we go back to one of the slides here. Yes. So here, how we have program services, management in general, and fundraising, you can also do this with programs as well. So if they are working across 3 different programs within the program services bucket, you can divide them up between there as well. It does take some digging to see how much of the time is actually divided. What I've done in my current organization is having people have a general tracking of where their time is spent. That's how we do it. We write it down on a piece of paper and given over a week. Usually the simpler, the better when it comes to all of this, but that's how I would track that.
Yeah, I'll add, it doesn't need to be an exact science, but I would start by talking to those staff members, get a sense from them, an initial sense of what percentage of their time is spent on programmatic on one program versus another. And also keep in mind when you're doing that, identify and come to an agreement among your organization, and this is something you can discuss at a board level or on a staff level, of what counts as program time. So if it is if some of that is spent writing program descriptions that's going to be used for fundraising purposes, some of that is considered that is going to be considered fundraising expense. But if writing the program description is so that you can describe to your constituent what it is that you're doing, that is a program expense, and you can call it that. And in fact, I would call it that, because everyone borrows a little bit from Paul to pay Peter on this type of thing. So you have there is no one right way to do this as long as you can justify the expense. When for some of your organizations who that might be smaller than $1 million, you may not be audited annually. When you get to being audited annually, typically this is a conversation that you're having with your accountants about how you break that up. So as long as you can justify it ethically and that your board is in agreement with how you are identifying the breakdown of how your staff is allocating their time for program services, it's typically there's a fair amount of trust in that. Let's see. The next question is, what if your organization does not have full-time staff yet that we can pay? We pay people per project. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
From a budgeting perspective, it's easier, right?
Yes, no, it's much easier when you have someone who's on a contract. That would be one line item saying for program X, subcontracting, you would note that if it's 2,000, 3,000, and it's pretty straightforward. It gets a little more complicated when you do have full-time employees or part-time employees who have more of the HR overhead. But with those who are not full-time, it is just a single line item indicating that they are a contractor.
So a couple people are sharing that they really need assistance with aspect of their business. It's been their greatest challenge as a new organization. If this feels incredibly daunting, Leanna, what is that first step that folks can take to just start to make sense of this? Is it a template? Is it writing down what they have done in the past? Is it trying to take an educated guess on what they think they're going to do in the future? Which direction would you point some of our
Yeah,
attendees?
I would say the first thing, what is your mission and what are you trying to accomplish? You need to understand where you're trying to go. From there, understand where your revenue is coming from. If you have any source of outside funding, and then from there, plan out what is needed to accomplish that mission. It does take some work. It's sometimes uncomfortable conversations. There are things that need to be prioritized. And we also, the nonprofit help desk, we're here to help too. If you need to connect with someone, I am available to break that down. And sometimes you just need an outside perspective. Um, there have been many organizations before you who have been in the exact same shoes, and with the correct resources, you can get to where you need to be.
An excellent point. So what I would recommend for, especially for those of you who are sort of feeling like this is helpful, but I still don't know where to begin, open up an Excel spreadsheet. Start with a blank spreadsheet or a blank piece of paper and a pencil, and start by saying, this is what I want to accomplish this year. Now, budgeting is on an annual basis, almost always. So if you, as Leanna is saying, is what is your mission? What do you want to accomplish this year? And start to use research, educated guesses based on what you think what's that going to cost? Is there going to be space expenses? Are there going to be material expenses? Are there going to be personnel expenses? What will it cost you? And then I always recommend start by increasing those numbers by about 5%. Because first of all, you usually lowball those things. There's always unexpected expenses. And if you are, if you're struggling with trying to identify or if you're incorrect, then you get a windfall. So that's great. The next thing that we then recommend, once you figure out this is what I think it's going to be, now you've filled in a few lines, right? You came up with your higher overarching, it's going to cost me $1,000, $10,000, $100,000. This is what I think it's going to cost. And then start breaking down the lines after that of, all right, but what do those costs really mean? You know, materials, space, people, etc. And you just take your time and break them down. This will take a long while. This will take talking to the people that are going to be helping you with this to say to them, yeah, but no, what is this really going to cost you? Your budget, your first year, as you're just getting started, is going to have a lot of holes in it. But write down as you fill in those holes, as you sort of realize, oh, okay, we spent this much money on Amazon, we spent this much money on at Oriental Trading, or wherever it is that we have purchased things. Start writing that down, because then your next year's budget is going to be based on that. Once you have those numbers, then you start to fill in, how are you going to afford this? And where do you think funding is going to come from? That is, as Leanna is saying, from those really hard conversations. How much is your board going to be contributing? What grants do you think you're going to get? And if the answer is 0, the question is, what can you do to start improving upon that? A lot of organizations have to bootstrap for easily 3 years before they start to have success in fundraising. They need to prove that they are worthy of funding for other people in order to start answering those questions. So what your budget is going to look like in year 0 is not what your budget is going to look like in year 3, because you're going to learn every year, but it's about documenting everything. Kimberly, I see your request for assistance. Just want to remind everyone, the only way that we can give assistance at the Nonprofit Help Desk is by completing a form, and we do offer assistance in order of receipt and based on the amount of funding that we receive in order to be able to pay our experts to help you. So if you are receiving, and I share this for everyone, if you have already received some support from the help desk on another topic, you may have to wait a while. It might not be within this fiscal year that we can receive the help. Our goal as a help desk is to help you help yourself. So anytime someone reaches out to the help desk, as I mentioned before, we may push back on you and say, watch the video first. Try to take the stab at what you can do, because again, we can't write a budget for you. We can share this kind of information. You have to start by doing the work to say, what's my mission? What do I think that's going to cost? What do I need to accomplish this year? What do I want to accomplish this year? What is my dream of accomplishing this year? And start to put numbers to those things. All right, jumping to another question. Someone is asking for directing them to a resource about fostering equity in staff salaries. An excellent question.
Yes, very excellent question. There is a resource here that I would like to share. Give me one moment. These are difficult conversations. I think people get uncomfortable, and that's okay. You need to be able to have these conversations to make sure that everyone is equitable. Here I have a guide. It's more of an audit to, where is this? Oh. Yeah, so the guide that I just sent, it is a guide to pay equity audits. And this is just an organization that does this, but you could take this information and take a deep dive on how to do them yourselves. These are uncomfortable conversations. The first step is to actually know how much you're paying everyone, seeing how long have they been in the organization, what is their capacity, and this, I will say that this is an area that I need to grow in. I need to learn more. The organizations that I have been a part of, that I've helped with budgets, it was already part of their values. It was already part of their systems. And so I've inherited these ways, but I have not worked with an organization that you had to start over, review. And so this is an area that I need to learn more about. Amy, do you have anything to add on that?
You know, I want to add that I appreciate the question because this is an area that nonprofit organizations only over the last few years are actually even bothering to ask, which is so appreciated. You know, the I would be remiss if I didn't say that the nonprofit sector in the US has a lot of faults, and this is one of them. There is an assumption we are not built to be terribly successful. And for decades, we have hundreds of years, in fact, we have not been set up to believe that folks who make the choice to be in the social service sector deserve to be paid appropriately. And we are seeing that move, but these conversations are still in their infancy, especially for small organizations. And if you're talking about organizations that again are under $1 million, they're not being audited. When you do your annual audit, which is required after you are over $1 million in order to get most types of, especially government funding, but a lot of different funding, that's when you're filling out a 990 form, you're filing your taxes every year, and that's when you're declaring who your highest paid employees are. If you're smaller than that, you aren't necessarily even moving in that direction just yet. But so I don't have a great answer for you, and I apologize for that because Hillary, I wish that I did, but we're getting there, and it is and so this resource that Leanna shared is excellent. We have another question. I have used QuickBooks for the past 5 years, and I think I need to redo my categories. Should I start from fresh for the next year's books, or should I try to correct my current books? I have the same question. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, the correct answer is it all depends, as most of the things in the financial accounting world. I would speak to your accountant. I personally am not an accountant and I don't want to lead you astray, but it all depends. We are leading towards the end of the year, and this may be depending on what your fiscal year is. Maybe you want to change when the new year, whenever your organization's year starts. Um, and it could, if it is a complete mess, maybe you need to do it right now. So what I would say is meet with your accounting professional to see what their opinion is, depending on if it is a quick change, maybe you can implement it as soon as possible. But if you're doing a complete overhaul, I would talk to your accountant, and they would be the ones to best know when the timing is.
Yeah, I think it depends on the why. If it's just that some of the things are outdated, my instinct is change the redo the categories and so that you have the historical information of, for example, we were serving our constituency this way, and now the naming of that doesn't really work, but at its core, it's the same sort of function. It is helpful because then in QuickBooks, you can really gain a history. But if you've really drastically changed your mission, or if it was set up incorrectly in the first place, and you're constantly going through a lot of inefficient steps to try to fix it, yeah, that's when it's sometimes you have to bite the bullet. But yes, I agree, I would go specifically to an accountant, and that is beyond the expertise of the help desk to sort of help you really unpack what that looks like. All right. Leanna, do you have the link to our survey on your
I
slides?
do. Give me
Excellent.
one
I'm going to have
minute.
you pop that up for us. I'm also going to throw it into the chat so you can either scan that QR code or use the link that we have pasted here to please complete a survey for us. Gives us some feedback on this session. Also allows you to tell us what else you want to be learning about, how we can improve, how we can continue to help you help your organizations, because that is why we are here. And unless there are any other questions that are burning in your mind and you want to hear from myself or Leanna about them, we can give you back 8 minutes of your Tuesday. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day, and thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Have a good one.